himself to lead us and to lead women to begin to take their rightful position in our country, in our continent, and in the world. We're gathered here as women who are dedicated to drive positive change and social impact. We're committed to raising children and young adults who will contribute to building a nation that future generations will be proud of. To build a nation is like building a home. If you cannot build a good home, it will be very difficult for you to build a good nation. It takes a lot to build a good home. It takes a lot to raise children that will take over from you and build a good home and a good world. In today's world, our children are exposed and tempted by things that we were never exposed to. And that means we have to know about the temptation that our children will face and are facing. It then surprises me because as if we already are not faced with enough challenges, but with our belief that we can do it, then it is possible for us to make these changes. We are indeed change makers and Change Makers International. And I once again thank our Father and our leader that he has put this together. And as this is the maiden outing, I also believe that it will go far. And it will go far because we are determined, with the support of our Father, that it will go far. There is a historical context and current challenges that women face. The problems we face today, both globally and locally, are immense. There are wars, there are health crises, there are climate changes, hunger, instability, and of course, there is corruption. In Nigeria, we're grappling with poverty, with hunger, corruption, moral decay, dishonesty, and a lack of accountability. A lack of accountability to ourselves as human beings, and lack of accountability by people who are in charge of our day-to-day living. When we talk about corruption, I always say to the people I'm speaking to at the time that when the woman who is selling gari or isam in the market, when she beats in the bottom of the cup that she's using to sell the gari and the isam, if she does that, or a woman who is selling fruits and she plucks unripe mango and puts it in hot water to make it look as if it's ripe, that's cheating. And I then believe that if you can cheat at isam and if you can cheat at gari, then you can cheat if you're given the opportunity to have millions and trillions of our money go through you. So when we talk of corruption, it's not just at the level of oil theft or whatever. It is right down to the grassroots and to our homes. So that's where the change must start. Historically, women are denied and were denied rights and opportunities in many parts of the world, but also in Africa and in Nigeria by our culture and our tradition. In the past, women were left behind so that the male child can attend school. So that is something that women have been denied. When I started school, primary school, in my community, I saw that there were women that were older than me, but they were in my class. And that means that they had not gone to school at the time that they should have, but that later on, maybe 3, 4, 5 years later, maybe the parents have money or it's been decided that she should go to school. And therefore, you have women who are older and then they are in the class of, say, 10-year-olds, and then maybe they're 12 or they're 15. But now we have women that have gone to school, have had an education. We have professors, we have engineers, we have pilots, we have doctors, we have all kinds of women with all kinds of knowledge to make a change in the world. But today we're talking about making these changes in Nigeria. Women were barred from participating in nation building, that's in politics. But if women are barred, then they cannot contribute. And if they cannot contribute, then some gifts and talents that our God has given to them is not exercised and is not used and is denied humanity. But now we have changes and we have women that are able to make these changes ahead of us. Like voting. In America, they fought for over 200 years before women were allowed to vote. In the United Kingdom as well, women were not allowed to vote until around 1928. In Nigeria, women were allowed to vote at different stages. In southern Nigeria, women began to vote in 1954. And in northern Nigeria, women were allowed to vote in 1978, after the Civil War. So despite some of these progresses, women today still face barriers in decision-making roles and in participating in the path that will bring change through women to our country. Therefore, it is critical and crucial that women are in the discussion and decision regarding our future in this country, in health, in security, in education, and in development. Women indeed are change makers. We're created to nurture, and we're also created to be part of the process. Therefore, make it encouraging and supporting women at this level that we are here today in Port Harcourt, to be encouraging women to become change makers, shows us that our Father believes in us And if he believes in us, then we cannot let him down. And if we cannot let him down, then it is very essential that we begin to understand what it means to be a change maker. And that's why I introduced it by starting from the least upwards. It is important that we realize, women realize, that they have a lot to give, and that this lot they have to give, they have to encourage themselves, and they have to encourage their children, male and female, to take responsibility for change in this country and for change in our growth. Change means that when you know something is wrong, then you don't do it. And you know something is right, then you do it. Doing the type of work that I have become known for, I believe that it's something I cannot choose not to do. It is something I believe in, and I believe that all of you here in this reign believe in that. That's why you're here. It was clear that maybe it would rain, but you came. And so that shows the sacrifice you're prepared to make. And that shows that you're prepared to make sacrifice in change, to make change. The change starts with the family, because the family is the cornerstone of society. Without families and without children, we will not have a society. We are the cornerstone of this society. Whether as single parents or by traditional family structure, we have a profound impact to make and to shape future generations. The breakdown of family values often leads to societal issues. By breakdown, I mean we find ourselves today women where women no longer stay at home to raise children. And it's not because we don't want to, but sometimes the circumstances does not allow us to stay at home and raise children. Therefore, we have to go out to work. And sometimes in going out to work, you have to make the choice, the very difficult choice, to leave the care of your child, maybe at 1, some at 6 months, to another woman, another person to look after. And as painful as that may be, we are leaving our children to be raised by somebody else. And no matter the laws you put down, you cannot say that that person who is helping to raise your child is not also influencing that child one way or the other. You hope that the influence is a better influence or a good influence, but you can't guarantee that that person's influence will not infiltrate and get into what your child learns and what your child remembers. But please, ladies, do not blame yourselves, because the choice you have to make is a very difficult one. Do you go out and earn a living so that your child can have a better life, or children? Or do you stay at home and you and your child or your children don't have a good quality of life? So it's a difficult choice to make. But we believe that we can make those choices through our faith, our different faiths, and make a right choice for our children. And that is why some of the changes I'm going to propose tonight, like the ladies who are working in offices, who are working in education structure, can we make change and request that perhaps we have creches? That's why sometimes you see that universities have primary schools attached to them. That was the idea. We need to perhaps go back to that type of situation where if you have a 6-month-old baby, instead of leaving that 6-month-old baby with someone else, is there a way there can be a creche where you go to work, you sign in, and you leave your child in the creche within that premises with people who will look after them for that period of time that you are at work. The challenges we face, they come with opportunities as well. They are not easy, but we will make them together. I want to suggest that perhaps women who work in the market, who sell and buy, can also consider this type of structure for themselves. Environment. We cannot talk about environment without knowing that our environment is somehow our life. That's why at the beginning of creation, the environment was the first that came in. Therefore, the destruction of our environment, we women and change makers, we must start to know that we have a role to play in keeping our environment alive. There are things that we can do for our environment. Maybe as this program goes along and this project goes along, we can begin to make the suggestions and put them together so that women who are interested and are in change making will be able to choose the ones that suits them. Leadership. We are in a revolving and rapid growth world. Women must engage in technology. Our children are engaging in technology that comes with danger. And we must know that when we buy telephones for our children and we're not there to know what they're doing, they can stumble upon things that will change their life for the worst forever. So we have to make sure that we know what our children are watching. Putting a child in front of a television just so that you can have peace and quiet is not the best thing for you in the future. It's not the best thing for the children. I want to conclude now. I want us to remember that we're not the first set of women that have decided to make changes. There are some women, and I want to quickly let us draw inspiration from these women. There was one time what was called the Aba Women Riot of 1929. It was not only them, it was women from the southern Nigeria and this part of Nigeria. And the reason why that happened was they thought or they believed that the head count that was being done at that time was to impose taxes on them. And then you have activists like Rosa Parks. I'm sure some of us have heard of her. She's a Black American. And that was in the days when Black people were not allowed to mingle with white people. And she defiantly refused to get up for a white woman to take her seat so that she could stand up. That was someone that made changes, and other women followed, and the civil rights was born in America. We have Mrs. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti. She was a prominent Nigerian feminist, a political activist, and an educator. We also have the late Dora Akunyili, who revolutionized Nigeria's pharmaceutical industry, fake drugs, and fought against counterfeit drugs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, whose leadership and expertise have made substantial impacts in global finance and development, and even was responsible for the cancellation of Nigeria's debt, where when Obasanjo was president, she was able to remove almost 60 or 70% of the debt we said that we owed, and so we paid less. These are remarkable women. Chief Mrs. Margaret Ekpo, a pioneering political leader who championed women's rights. Women are allowed to go into all fields of endeavor, of development, of security, and of change. I honor their contributions, and together I say to you seated here, and the other women you will introduce what you have heard here today to, that you are recognized, you will be supported, and eventually you will be celebrated. Today we can build on these achievements that the women before us have made to create a better and more equitable world for future generations. Before I say thank you, Daddy, I want to say again that I am really amazed and humbled that you had this vision to decide that women can, and that you will support women to be part of the change in Nigeria, in our communities, in our home, in the world, because there are Nigerian women in the world outside of Nigeria that are doing great things in science, in medicine. We don't hear much about them, but they are there. You have done a great thing by starting this Women for Change. And I want to say to the fellow women, my sisters, my mothers, I hope, my sisters, that we cannot, I definitely cannot, let down our father. This cannot stop in Port Harcourt this year. It must continue. We must come back next year.